Welcome to the Practitioners Rise podcast. I'm your host, Haley Krajewski, marketing strategist, natural health advocate, and a mom on a mission. Each week, I sit down with natural health and wellness practitioners from around the country who are doing incredible life-changing work. We go deep on the things you've been Googling at midnight, share real tips and resources, and my hope is that you walk away feeling more informed, more empowered, and more confident in the choices you're making for yourself and your family. Because I fully believe that when practitioners rise, entire communities rise with them. So let's dive in. My guest today had a hysterectomy at 31. She's never given birth, and she is, by her own description, probably the least likely person to end up where she is. But a friend called, said, tag you're it, and asked her to be her yoga teacher through pregnancy, and something clicked. Since then, Mary Anne Tillotson has walked alongside hundreds of women through pregnancy, birth, and the early chaos of new motherhood. From hearing stories, holding space for the hard parts, and showing up without an agenda. Because when you've never experienced birth yourself, every single birth story is extraordinary. The C-sections, the home births, the epidurals, the plans that went sideways. We know that always happens. She's here for all of it. So Mary Anne is a registered prenatal yoga teacher, NASM-certified personal trainer, and certified life coach. She runs the Bump Collective out of North Carolina, teaches prenatal yoga every Saturday at Belmont Yoga, and has a prenatal resource book coming in the spring of 2027, which I can't wait to talk about more later. And 66% of moms describe their birth experience as traumatic. So Mary Anne believes that number does not have to stay that way. Mary Anne, welcome to the show. I am so glad you're here.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. All right. Well, let's dive in. I, of course, always like to start with story. And so in the introduction, I shared that of all the prenatal yoga teachers, you would probably make the least amount of sense. So you had a hysterectomy at 31, and yet your life's work became supporting women through pregnancy and birth. Can you share more about your journey looking back and your experience with all of our listeners and what you mean when you say that?
So motherhood, the whole concept has always been kind of complicated for me. I have never been one of those women who felt like I would be incomplete if I didn't have a baby. I have friends who their entire life is to be a mom, and which it should be. Like, they are the most amazing moms that I know. I've never been like that, but I also always assumed that I would have kids. Like, it was never a question. Like, I'll meet the right guy and then I'll have kids. And when I met the right guy, he came with kids. So I became a stepmom, and I have two wonderful, wonderful stepsons. One of them is 13, one of them is 15, and they are my world. I adore them. But it made things a little bit more complicated on the biological kids front. Again, I still just kind of assumed that it would happen. I was just waiting for the time to be right, waiting for finances to be right. But then in 2024, I got handed a diagnosis for endometriosis. And after I was dealing with symptoms of endo for, like 13 years. The average amount of time that it takes for an endo diagnosis is somewhere between 7 and 10 years. So I was kind of right a little bit farther than the usual. But with that diagnosis, I was given the option to either get a hysterectomy, to get a birth control implant to prevent future periods, or to basically just keep dealing with the symptoms that I'd been dealing with for so long. For my mental health, it made the most sense to go ahead and get a hysterectomy. It was really, really hard to walk away from the opportunity of being a mom, but it was healthier for me than holding on to that maybe. So that's kind of the hysterectomy side of things. Going on in the background of all of that, I was a legal assistant for a corporate tax attorney for, more than a decade. I decided to go through yoga teacher training in 2019 just for fun. I wasn't planning on doing anything with it. I just wanted to further my practice. Halfway through training, I discovered that I loved it. I was completely and totally obsessed with it. And I graduated at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. So that was an interesting experience. Still had no interest in prenatal. Like, we skimmed over it in YTT, which is normal for a 200-hour program, because that they're trying to cram a lot of information into that 200 hours is a lot. So I knew nothing about prenatal yoga. But then in 2021, I had a friend reach out to me and basically it was, hey, tag, you're it. Like she wanted me to be her prenatal teacher. Her practice had been really, really important to her. She had been dealing with a lot of health struggles for years, and yoga was kind of the key that finally unlocked things for her. And her practice was so, so important to her. But pregnancy was really hard on her. She was just in a lot of pain. She couldn't practice the way that she wanted to, the way that she was used to. I walked alongside her journey and then I didn't put it down. That experience completely changed how I looked at prenatal, and it's become, pun intended, my baby.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing. I think it really helps put into perspective for our listeners and even me to having this conversation of really like where you started, where you came from. And some of those hard experiences are the one that shape us. I also had no idea that it was like 7 to 10 years for a diagnosis of endometriosis. That's crazy.
It's
Uh,
really does. It makes me very angry.
yes. And like that's a long time and having to deal with those symptoms. And then also, like you said, making the decision of kind of letting go of that, becoming a mom in that way, right? Because you are to get to be a bonus mom to your stepchildren. And that is incredible. I have a stepmom as well and a stepdad. And I'm just so thankful always that I get two families, right?
Mhm.
And so it's amazing what you're doing. But I think that had to be difficult, right? And then when your friend asked you to come alongside of her, what was your initial reaction when she asked you? Or I know you had mentioned that like that kind of changed your whole outlook on it. Can you share a little bit more about that?
I was terrified. Up to that point, I had had a few pregnant students in class. And the way that it almost always went was they would come to a power class because their doctor told them to do yoga. So they just picked a yoga class. And then halfway through class, they'd be like, oh, I can't do that. I'm pregnant. And they're patting their belly. And I'm like, why are you here? Why did you not tell me? Like, what's wrong with you? So I was terrified. I knew nothing. And I was thinking, how can I teach something that I've never experienced? Like how I don't know what it feels like to be pregnant. I don't know what that sort of growth feels like. So I was really, really scared. But I also, of all the students that could have asked me, she was the perfect one. She was so self-aware. And so I was able to ask questions. Like, I immediately jumped in and started doing research, started reading, I started studying, I started asking questions so that I knew, okay, this is what's safe in a prenatal practice. This is why this isn't safe, et cetera. But in practicing with her, it was very much like, okay, how does this feel? How does your body feel today? What symptoms are you dealing with? Okay, you can't, like, you have GI trouble if your heart rate gets up. So we're going to stay really, really slow, but you're really concerned about core strength. So let's figure out how to safely work through your core and what that looks like, since we're not going to work those rectus abdominis muscles. It was a really, really great opportunity to force me outside of my comfort zone. She was so patient with me, asking so many questions. My personal motto has always kind of been, if I'm the smartest person in the room, then I'm in the wrong room. And so I always want to learn. So when she asked me, it was terrifying, but it was also really, really exciting to kind of have a direction of, oh, this is what I need to learn next. So that was kind of my initial reaction.
And some of those, I think some of those experiences too just kind of show us the direction that we're meant to go into, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
So
and also, what I was noticing when you were saying that, I didn't ask, so did you get out of working at the law firm at this time when all of this happened? Or did COVID kind of play a part in that too?
No, it's so funny that you ask that. So when COVID shut everything down, thankfully, COVID was very, very easy on me. And I fully acknowledge the privilege that I have to be able to say that, because I know a lot of people were really, really devastated by that season. But we were able to work fully remote. So I was working from home. I started teaching yoga on the side. So I was picking up early morning classes, evening classes, weekend classes. So I maintained that job until actually December of last year. My boss, after almost 6 years of being fully remote, my boss decided that he wanted us back in the office. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I'll stick around here and I'll figure it out. So not at that time, but as of December of last year, that's when I shipped it out.
We were also very fortunate during that time that I was still working in office for a nonprofit, and our in-home daycare lady didn't quit. So that was amazing. So that kids could still take care. I could work from home. It was like the best of both worlds. And then at that time, I just had 3 little ones. And I'm like, I don't ever want to go back to an office, like
Mhm.
ever.
I know that it works for people, for some people, and I am so,
Yeah.
so glad that that opportunity is there for them, but it doesn't it's in my experience, it does not work well for moms, mom figures, entrepreneurs, a lot of people.
Yes, yes, and exactly like you said, we still need those people to be in office, to be in practice, to be there so we can go to those places, but it's not for everyone.
Mhm.
So fortunate to be able to do that. But okay, so let's get back into talking more about that prenatal birth process. So I'm sure by now you've heard countless birth stories. What's something that you learned about birth that completely changed the way you think about motherhood?
Um, when you look at Instagram, when you hear like, thinking about my mom's generation, talking about their birth stories. And my mom was an RN, so she had, medical training. So her perspective was a little bit different. I assumed that everybody just knew what they were doing. Like you go into motherhood, you get pregnant. It's like, all right, instinct says I'm doing this. And, I just assumed that everybody knew what they were doing. And in walking through pregnancy and hearing about birth stories and getting to know moms as they get to know motherhood, realizing that really nobody knows what they're doing. And it's reshaped how I look at birth, but it's also increased even more how much respect and awe I have for moms as they go to and through motherhood.
And what do you think too? Because you get to watch that whole process, right? When you're working with these women, what do you believe that, and this can be like a hot take, right? But what do you believe many women spend far too much time worrying about during pregnancy that ends up mattering far less than they think it might?
All of the stuff.
Yes.
I know obviously like babies need diapers, baby needs card seat, baby needs a cradle, all the things like I know that there are things that you have to have. But I also think that we get really, really, really caught up in the stuff. We get caught up in the showers. We get caught up in the maternity clothes. We get caught up in the cute little outfits for baby, in due dates, and like just all of the stuff that you see and hear. This is all the stuff that you need to put on your registry, and this is the theme for the nursery. And it really seems like everybody gets so caught up in that stuff and they miss their season. They miss that season themselves. They their baby gets here and they realize, oh, like my baby is a totally individual person, even newborn. They are still like they're their own person.
And I'm sure you know this too with 2 older boys, but by the time our 4th was born, I was like, we don't really need anything, right? Like you need the bare essentials because as babies, and I was fortunate enough to be able to nurse all my kids. So it was like, we just needed diapers, wipes, and some clothes, right? I had my wraps. I absolutely loved the wraps, being
Mhm.
able to just kind of be on the go and move. But there's so much less stuff that you actually need compared to then when we were preparing for our first, right? Like you said, the
Mhm.
showers and all the things. And I just wish there was a more of a focus, and I'm sure this is what you work with women on too, but like just preparing yourself for the life change that's about to happen and really focusing on like self-love. And I don't know, it's kind of just like a sacred time that you said we just often miss because we're so worried about all the other things or maybe pleasing all the other people that want to take part in it too rather than really focusing on that journey.
Very, very, very much so. I know a lot of my students are worried about what their mother-in-law says, what their own biological mother says, trying to keep the peace between all the various and sundry people at different showers. There's so much pressure coming from all different directions. And, oh, well, I had this on my registry, so you need it on your registry. I wouldn't survive if it wasn't for this random product that costs $300. Well, we don't have $300. And so is my baby not going to be okay if I don't have this $300 thing? It breaks my heart to see everyone freaking out over all of these things because there's so much information and trying to filter that down, trying to, get down to the essentials of it and what matters for you, what matters for your pregnancy, for your family, for your birth. It's hard. It's overwhelming. It's overwhelming for me watching. I can only imagine how overwhelming it is for moms as they are living it.
Yes, 100%. Like you said, there's so much information. It's like information overload and like, what do I actually need? And so now whenever there's moms having babies, I always just get like the actual things like their nursing pads or like just things you will need, right? Like practical gifts are what I love to give now because as a mom, I'm like, oh, I hate more stuff. And I'm sure you can even relate to like birthdays. I have the worst time because I'm like, I hate toys.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because the toys don't like they'll play with them for 5 seconds and be done, or they will break them instantly. Like,
Or they make so much noise that you
yeah,
can hear them 3 houses down.
yes. Oh my gosh. My husband and I were driving the other day and it's like, do you have to yell every time we are in the truck? Like, just look out the window. Like, so much noise. Oh, okay. So, on the flip side, what do you wish more women paid attention to before birth during that prenatal time that you work with them?
On kind of a just like wide angle lens perspective, I guess, it would be community. So the personal community side of it, your partner, your mom, if you want her there, the people that you want around you during your pregnancy, through those milestone events, at your birth, in those newly newborn days, who you want around you, but then also other moms going through the same season. I know one of my friends was 34, 35 when she had her. Several of my friends have been in their mid to late 30s when they've had their babies. And so they feel very, very alone because so many of their friends had their babies in their early 20s. Or they have a lot of friends who are, still single. And so they're changing the vibe. So finding a community that is kind of in the trenches with you. I know as a stepmom, it is so empowering for me to meet other stepmoms, but also biological moms who are in similar life stages that I am, dealing with a 13 and 15-year-old. They're wonderful human beings, and they are 13 and 15. There's a very large learning curve there for me. Knowing that other people are going through similar experiences is so validating. The third piece of that community is finding a community where you feel empowered and educated. Talking about information overload, trying to filter through all of the stuff that shows up on Google and everything is really, really, really hard. And so finding a community of experts who meet your needs, your goals. If you are hoping for an unmedicated birth or at least a more holistic birth rather than a planned C-section, for example, finding a gynecologist, finding a doula, finding a lactation consultant, finding all of those experts who are able to back up what you're looking for. If you are on your second pregnancy and your first birth was traumatic and you are going into a second pregnancy and you're planning a C-section, you need a community that is not going to shame you. Finding a community that backs up your beliefs and your needs and supports you is one of the most empowering things that I think that a mom can find.
And I love that you put it that way too, right? What are your beliefs? Because I think that's a big part of it. Not everybody is in the same boat. And I think you have so many people, even the ones you love and who are trying to be loving and are not doing it out of spite at all, but like pushing their beliefs on you. And I'm probably guilty of this too, right?
Everybody
Uh,
is.
but finding some people, a community that you can surround yourself with that match up with what you want. And I think that's, what I know now, I would have completely changed
Mhm.
how I gave birth, especially to the twins, but also the other two births as well. I look back at it now, but it's like, okay, I can't look back, right? We can only look forward. But I think definitely surrounding myself with that community and just being more informed and educated. And so that's a huge goal of this podcast, is to help people feel more empowered and more educated. Because like you said, we're Googling the things at midnight, which I have done, and either you're dying right away or probably tomorrow. So or there's a plethora of like conflicting information. And so who are the people that we can actually trust? And that is hard these days because of AI and just the information that we have out there. So, do you have resources for community? Do you have a community that you recommend, or is it all pretty local to you in North Carolina, which is okay because I'm sure you'll have local people listening to this too. So, I'd love to hear more about if you have any communities.
Yeah, so unfortunately, I don't have much nationwide. Currently, I am working on building a local community, which is the Bump Collective. The Bump Collective, when I was going through my prenatal yoga teacher training, I did that through the Prenatal Yoga Center in New York City. It was a wonderful program. And we read so many books and listened to so many different perspectives, different podcasts, watched different documentaries, just about how different the birth experience is depending on where you are. For example, I live in Belmont, North Carolina. It is a relatively affluent, primarily white community. The women are educated and they still deal with prenatal mood and anxiety disorders. They still deal with the baby blues. They deal with feeling alone, feeling deserted. They deal with unplanned C-sections, traumatic birth. There's so much, and that's with access to a lot of resources. And so in other parts of the country, if you're in rural Iowa, you're an hour's drive from a hospital. So I started putting together the Bump Collective, and I know that more and more resources like that are popping up around the nation because women are realizing how important community is. The Bump Collective we've got 5 primary people. So me, I'm the yoga teacher and the leader, but then we also have a prenatal massage therapist, a lactation consultant, a pelvic floor physical therapist, and a doula. And we put together day retreats about once or twice a year. And those day retreats are intended just to give women access to as much community and resources and education and empowerment as we possibly can. You're surrounded by a bunch of other women who are currently pregnant. We try to make small groups with women who are at a similar stage of pregnancy so that you are kind of in the trenches together. We offer educational presentations to help women as they go into motherhood with pelvic floor stuff, questions about labor and delivery, lactation struggles, massage for baby, the benefits of prenatal yoga. But then we also have incorporated a vendor fair where women can meet businesses in the community. So we've got newborn photographers. She calls herself a doula tog. So she's a certified doula, but she also takes photographs during delivery. We've got meal prep services. We've got a local baker who makes lactation cookies. We have tons. We are so, so blessed to have so many mental health therapists in our area who are passionate about helping moms. So to take it back to kind of more of a nationwide perspective, once you find one resource, you will probably find dozens because we all talk to each other because we are all so, so passionate about it. And so if you can find a therapist who has experience with PMABs, they probably have a network of other therapists who have a specialty in C-sections, who have a specialty in traumatic birth events. And they probably know someone who does newborn photography, who does women's empowerment photography, who does the lactation cookies and meal prep and things like that. So once you find one, it's kind of amazing how many more people you'll find. It's kind of like dropping a stone in a bucket and just all the ripple effect.
Yes. Well, the Bum Collective sounds amazing. So if you are in North Carolina, again, and we'll talk about this, but we'll have all of your links there so people can find you, because what an incredible way to support those women. And I think having that leading up to pregnancy rather than trying to find it all after you're giving birth is really, really vital and important. And like you said, once you find one, it's likely they're going to have their own network. So like just last night, I had a friend texting me that they have a super colicky baby. I'm like, have you ever tried chiropractic? I can find a recommendation in your area, right? So I texted one of my friends and clients, and she's like, I'll post it. We'll find them a recommendation. So it's just that ripple effect. Like once you start talking about it and sharing and building that community, it can go so far. So let's maybe kind of move into that more postpartum, right? Because I think so many women feel this pressure to bounce back after having the baby. And we know that there's stats out there and postpartum depression is big. And there's now like so much more anxiety and this pressure from everywhere, even looking perfect from all the TikTok and Instagram and everything online. So what's your take on this?
I detest the term bounce back. I cannot stand it. Your body just grew a whole human and you just birthed that human. I
Yes.
might start crying, so I'm sorry about that. But your body just did this incredible and miraculous thing
Mhm.
that is no small feat. It doesn't matter if it's a C-section, if it's an epidural, if it's a vaginal birth, if it's a home birth, it doesn't matter what it looks like. That is nothing short of a miracle that your body just carried that human and birthed that human. And it's gonna affect your body, it's gonna affect your brain, it's gonna affect your hormones, and it's going to affect your perspective. Even as a stepmom, I am changed. I'm an entirely different human being now than I was before I became a stepmom. My focus has entirely shifted. My focus prior to that was I had a community, I had friends, I dated, all the things. But now my focus is those children and wanting to love them to the best of my ability and worrying about them and thinking about the things that they're going through now, the things that they're going to be going through 5 years from now, the things that they're going to be going through when I retire and what happens when I die. Like there's such a perspective shift. And I can only imagine it is a bazillion fold more when you're a biological mom because you birthed that human. This human is part of you. And the idea of bouncing back, you'll never become the person you were before kids.
Mhm.
Your body will never be that body again because you carried a human. Your skeleton and your muscles and your fascia had to change so that you could carry that human. Your hormones they're going to be out of whack. Like our hormones are already so affected by so many things. Our hormones are always affected. But again, like the number of hormones flowing through your body throughout pregnancy don't go away just because you had a baby. It takes months to cycle through all of those hormones and start to get back to a state of normal. And that's affected by breastfeeding. So I hate the concept of bouncing back because you'll never be that same person again. And society, social media, I've had students who have been asking each other if they have packed makeup in their hospital bags because they feel like they need to have makeup on for their photos at the hospital. So you just birthed a human. Why do you think you need makeup? You're beautiful. You just birthed the whole human. It makes me angry. It makes me sad that women feel that pressure because I know that pressure. Watching my journey after my hysterectomy, like, oh, well, I had surgery and my body is different now. And, feeling like I need to look like I did when I was in my 20s. And our bodies change and that's okay. Change is not always a bad thing, especially in the pathway to motherhood. You you will be changed. If you are not changed, then you're not doing it right. And so the idea of having to bounce back and become who you were before is impossible. And it just sets you up for feeling defeated, feeling like a failure, feeling like you're doing it wrong in one of the most transformative seasons of your life.
Yes. And you almost like I'm getting emotional over here too because it's so true. And like you said, even after your hysterectomy, like just as women, like things like that and experiences, and as we age, like you are always changing and growing and evolving. And growing a human, like you said, it's miraculous, right? Like our bodies are innately designed to provide these miracles and then know what to do, right? And if it took 9 months to grow a baby, longer than that to have the baby, right? Like it's going to take your body time to adjust to its new normal. I know I'm going to totally butcher this and get it wrong in saying it, but it's like something to do with your hormones like 4 years after birth. It's not like totally back to normal until then, whatever your
Mhm.
new normal is. But I'm like, oh, that makes sense because my youngest is 4 and I'm finally starting to like, I don't even know what normal feels like, but feel better. And it's probably to do with like chiropractic and acupuncture and all of the things that I'm doing. But yeah, it definitely changes you. And there's so many around me and other women that are having babies or have had babies and they're like just worried about the way that they look. And like you said, yes, it's hard, but I think it's because that's how society has programmed us to think of we need to look a certain way or act a certain way.
Mhm.
I think just the emotion I think so many people might have when they're listening to this, because when you really sit down to think about it of like, yeah, look at what I did. Look at what we're doing. Even like you said, being a stepmom and raising kids, it changes you because you're now focused on not just ourselves, but like how are we raising them? And are we going to do okay? Like, are we going to totally mess it up and they're just going to be terrible humans? I don't know.
That
Right.
struggle is very real.
But we spend so much time just like thinking about it and, just sometimes beating up ourselves over it. So thank you for sharing that. I think it's really important to just hear that perspective. But I think on that, you spend a lot of time, even I'm sure with the Bum Collective and what you're doing, but helping women reconnect with themselves
Mhm.
after having children. So can you maybe share a little bit more about that? Because I think we also hear the term that like mothers lose themselves after having children and kind of have those baby blues and all that.
So, yeah, I think that I think again, women have so much pressure from so many different directions. You have the pressure to bounce back. You have the pressure to look the way that you did before baby. You have the pressure to be the world's best mom, and you have to breastfeed them perfectly. And you have to, your hair has to look nice, and you have to be there for every single nap and every single wake up. And like, there's so much pressure pulling moms in so many different directions. And it is completely and totally impossible to be in every direction. You can't show up for yourself and show up for your baby and show up for your spouse and show up for your job and show up for other kids if you're on your second or third pregnancy. You can't give all of those things 100%, nor should you be expected to. And so in my experience, again, it just kind of comes back to that community aspect of being able to support moms so that they can feel safe, feel seen, feel able to step away to meet those other needs. I will never forget after one of my friends had a baby, I went to her house and I was like, hey, like I can clean, I can make you something, I can like what do you need from me? Like I'm here, put me to work. I was like, honestly, can you just hold this child for 7 minutes so I can go take a shower? Because I haven't done that in forever. And I'm like, yes, I got you. And so having that community and that availability to be able to show up. So, in coming back to the idea of how women lose themselves, it's important, obviously, to be there for your baby. It's important to, again, find your beliefs, your priorities. If you want to exclusively breastfeed, then finding ways to meet that goal while, again, utilizing the community around you, utilizing the people around you, knowing that you don't have to do it all by yourself, because that's where the pressure comes in, is when everything is laid at your feet as a mom and you can't meet it all. Whereas if you are able to not take advantage, but to utilize the community around you so that you can show up in other ways, then you're able to take a shower, go for a walk, sleep, and do the things that actually help you come back to yourself, whatever version of yourself you are now. Because again, you're not going to be the same self that you were before you had a kid. They're going to be very, very different now. But having that ability to step away so that you can figure out who.
And it's so true. And I think sometimes it's hard because, like you said, we think we have to like do it all when it's like, take the help. If people are asking, take the help. And we are so fortunate to have so much family around us that we were like literally surrounded by a community when we had our kids. And especially with the twins, like, I don't know. I always say I don't wish that first year upon anybody, but we were so very fortunate to have people that would just come hold the baby so we could take a shower or like sleep. I don't know. It's hard to remember now. It's almost 8 years ago, but it's so important and sometimes humbling to be like, okay, yes, I do need the help. Can you help me? And that can be a really hard thing too, to just ask for help no matter what stage you're in, right?
Well, and that's why I feel like it's so important for the community to take on some of that responsibility. Because if a mom is drowning in that newborn season, that first year season, and especially if she's dealing with any sort of postpartum depression, any sort of perinatal mood and anxiety disorder, she won't necessarily be able to ask for help. She won't necessarily have the words to reach out. And so that's where I feel like it is so, so important for that community, for that partner, for that family, for friends, et cetera. Again, setting it up prior to birth so that you have those resources available so that you're not Googling things at 2 o'clock in the morning and feeling like the world is ending, but having people who are available to step up and say, hey, I'm here. I'm going to help, so that you don't even have to ask for that help. Because again, I don't think a lot of moms have the words for that.
Yes, that's so true. And I didn't even think of it that way of like, that's also what a community is great for, is just stepping in, because I think that's something hard for me too. Cause I'm like, well, I never want to do the wrong thing or say the wrong thing.
Mhm.
Uh, but I'm sure probably some type of gesture is better than none at all. And so just like, do you have any examples or like tips for other people listening that maybe are in the space where they're not having kids, but they want to be a part of that community? Or how can they step in and help those around them that have new moms or moms dealing with that postpartum depression and anxiety?
Stop asking and start doing it. Simple Google search, what are some easy ways to show up for moms and, for specific seasons, but for general things, showing up with a meal and sending them a text message in advance. Hey, you don't have to host me. I'm literally just dropping this on your porch. All you got to do is get it to the fridge. I'm dropping off food, and thinking through what you're dropping off. So not dropping off, oh, taco night sounds so fun. I can't eat while holding a baby. I can only imagine trying to eat while nursing a baby or anything like that, a little bit of taco all over their face. Thinking through what it is that you're dropping off, something that can be easily reheated, easily frozen. Thinking through quantities. The meal trains are great, but then they end up with 16,000 casseroles that they can't eat because you cooked like you were feeding an army. So thinking that stuff through and showing up, either showing up yourself or saying, hey, I am giving you a gift card for this laundry service. Have your laundry out on the porch, and that's all you have to do. Or I'm sending you a DoorDash gift card, or something that doesn't require them to actually come up with a list. Because if you text a new mom and say, hey, what do you need? How can I help? Now she's just having to come up with a to-do list for you. But if you say, I can come and hold the baby so you can shower. I can come and do your dishes so that you can hold the baby. I can come and hold the baby so that you can nap. Pick one. Be okay with whatever it is that they ask for. A lot of the times, all that moms want is to just hold their baby. Like the things that are exhausting them, that are draining them, is having to set the baby down so that they can wash the bottles, so that they can do the dishes, so that they can feed the other kids, so that they can take care of the husband, whatever it is. And so being okay with offering help that doesn't involve you snuggling their baby.
Yes, yes. And I'm so guilty of the, hey, what can I do? Where I love your strategy better of just like, I can come over and do this for you, or a DoorDash card, or like you said, a meal delivery, and thinking through what it is, because that's really important too. I know for in my family, we are more concerned now, like there's food allergies or things that we, don't eat or might not eat. And so you want to make sure you're not giving them something that they're like, thank you, and we can't eat this, right? And just being cognizant of that. But oh my gosh, any service like that of like laundry or cleaning, I know that was always so big when someone would come over and like fold my laundry. My mother-in-law was amazing and always folded my millions of loads of laundry, cleaned, and all of our family came over and helped. And so yeah, if you can surround yourself with that community ahead of time. And if there are people listening that are like, I don't even know where I would start in finding a community, do you have any tips on where they could start if they're not in your area?
So look into fitness classes. Burn Boot Camp really targets expecting moms. A lot of yoga studios have prenatal yoga classes. Even if they don't have a specific prenatal yoga class, they'll have deep stretch classes or yin classes or other classes that are appropriate for expecting moms. So fitness classes are a great opportunity to just meet people. Obviously, pay attention to what sort of fitness class you're going to, because if you're going to the CrossFit gym with all of the gym bros, that is not necessarily going to be a mom community. But if you're going to the mom CrossFit gym and meeting all of the other moms who are interested in fitness, that's going to be a little bit different. Even things like churches, getting involved in church groups, life groups, Sunday school classes, just shopping around. Don't feel like you have to like land on the one the first time that you go somewhere, but shopping around and finding people who are in your life stage, and Facebook groups. There are tons and tons and tons of Facebook groups full of women who are, hey, I just moved to the area and I don't know anybody. Hey, we've been here for a while, but we don't really have any friends in our life stage. Hey, I have a 3-year-old, but I'm also pregnant and I really want my 3-year-old to have some friends. Getting involved in the neighborhood Facebook groups, getting involved in the neighborhood text chat, getting involved in the local, again, I live in Belmont. We have a Belmont Moms Network. And most towns are going to have something like that. And just putting it out there and being vulnerable. Hey, I'm here. I'm open for community, and making it clear that you do want that community. There's no shame in admitting that we need community.
Yes, yes, definitely. And I think that's a great first step. Like I'm even thinking here of all the Facebook communities, like Moms of the Triple Valley. And yes, like you said, there's so much on there on Facebook too, but the churches and just the local yoga, most times when you meet people, they're going to also have a suggestion. It goes back to that ripple effect before. So,
Mhm.
okay. So before we close out, we had nodded to the fact that you're writing a book and it's going to be launching in the spring of next year. So tell me more about the book. What's it about?
The book is my baby. The title is Space, Strength, Balance, Breath, a Prenatal Yoga Pathway. So it is my goal is for it to be a resource for moms and for teachers to make prenatal yoga more accessible for the community at large. So I'm partnering with a photographer, Megan Easterday of Easterday Creative. And the way that the idea for the book was born was she was pregnant and she would text me constantly. I am in so much pain. What do I need to do? This is what's hurting. What do I do? How do I fix it? Like all of these things. And I was obviously happy to answer her text messages and go by her house and help out and whatnot. But I'm like, but she needs more. Like, what happens when I can't get back to her? I only have my prenatal class on Saturdays and she lives farther away. Like, how can we bridge this gap? Learning more about birth experiences and pregnancy experiences nationwide in places that don't have a prenatal yoga class available, in places that don't even have yoga classes available. Women who have never done yoga before. And so they're trying to do a vinyasa class when that's not necessarily what they need. It really, really hit home the idea of I want to have a resource that makes prenatal yoga more accessible, financially accessible, physically accessible, something that to look at it, they see, because if you can look up prenatal yoga classes and you see a size 2 person doing prenatal yoga, it's like, okay, well, of course you can do that. You're a size 2. But what about when I'm 8 months pregnant and I can't breathe? Like that's very, very different. So the book, it is separated into 4 different sections. So space obviously is going to be making space, not necessarily flexibility, since moms have a false sense of flexibility due to the hormone relaxin in their bodies. So really just emphasizing the idea of making space in the body, especially as baby gets bigger. Strength, obviously building strength, maintaining strength, doing strengthening postures specifically to train for labor and delivery. Balancing, psychologically balancing a newborn and a 5-year-old, balancing a step family and a biological family, balancing work and life and all of the things. But then also building balance physically is one of the best things we can do for our bodies, not only through pregnancy, post-pregnancy, going towards menopause, et cetera. Just it's a safety thing. And then breath. Your breath is one of the most powerful tools that we have during pregnancy, during labor, during delivery, in taking care of the pelvic floor, healing the pelvic floor postpartum. So that's going to be talking about breath practices to take through pregnancy and into labor and delivery and postpartum. The big thing that I'm excited about with the book is all of my models are pregnant. I have, I don't even remember, like 6 or 7 models who are all at different stages of pregnancy. So one of them, to look at her, she's got the little teensy tiny baby bump because she was just barely pregnant. And then I have a model who she was taking photos, I think 3 days before her baby arrived.
Oh my gosh.
So she was like, I'm so pregnant and I don't want to be pregnant anymore. And this is exhausting. So I think that I think it will make prenatal yoga feel more accessible to see, oh, this is what it looks like in different types of bodies. This is what it looks like at different stages of pregnancy. And these are the benefits of these postures. So, like, for example, puppy pose can feel really, really good. It can open up through the rib cage. It can stretch out through the chest. It's really bad if you've got heartburn. Don't do it if you're dealing with morning sickness. It's really great if your baby is a breech or a transverse presentation and you've got time. The inversion can encourage them into the hammock of the belly and hopefully make a little bit more space for them to spin around. It's not guaranteed, but it makes a little bit more space. So being able to explain the ins and outs and the do's and don'ts, and really, really pushing the idea of autonomy and, this is your practice, this is your body, this is your baby. I don't care what your birth scenario looks like. I care because I'm invested, but I don't care what it looks like because it's going to look the way you need it to look. And that's the most important part, is that I want you to feel empowered and educated and powerful going into your birth and into motherhood. So that's my goal with the book, is just to try to make it more accessible for women, because I do obviously feel very strongly in the power of a prenatal yoga practice. I've had so many students reach out to me after their births to tell me how influential my classes were for them. Like, I burst into tears the first time I got one of those, because I was like, I had no idea that I could help. And so I do feel very, very strongly that prenatal yoga can make birth feel more like you.
Mm.
And so my hope and my prayer is that the book allows more women to access that, because prenatal yoga is a privilege. It's a very expensive hobby. It's a difficult thing to access. Again, you can find classes on YouTube, but they're not necessarily going to be with pregnant women. And so I'm just hoping that it will make it feel more accessible.
Well, I think it sounds like a really powerful book. I know that I could have used it. And I love the idea of like having the models at different stages, because for me, even now going to do yoga, and I have a friend who owns a yoga studio, I'm always like, I don't even know how to do the pose. So I love that I can watch the person up front doing it. But like you said, it's so much different than when you're like have no baby bump or you have a huge baby bump, right? And understanding why behind it, like that even takes it one step further. So I think it's going to be an amazing book. And again, we'll share all the links here. So if people want to find you, want to come to be a part of the Bump Collective, where can they find you?
So if you're in North Carolina, I teach at Belmont Yoga. We're smack dab in the middle of downtown Belmont. I have a Saturday prenatal class at 11:45. If you want to get involved with the Bump Collective, send us a follow on Instagram. It's just the Bump Collective. And we have a prenatal yoga retreat, or a prenatal day retreat rather, coming up on Saturday, August 1st. So if you're in the area and want to come to that, I'd love to have you. You can also follow Queen Bee Coach on Instagram. That's my personal Instagram with a little bit more of my journey. And then you can also visit our website, thebunkcollectivenc.com.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Mary Anne. I enjoyed talking with you today, and I'm really excited to share you as a resource. And I think so many are going to get so much out of this episode today. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been my pleasure.
Thanks for being here today. I hope this episode gave you something you needed, whether that's a new perspective, a resource to explore, or just the reminder that you're not alone in this journey. And if today's episode spoke to you, tag me on Instagram, share with a friend, leave a review. That's how we build stronger, healthier communities together. One practitioner, one story, one family at a time. So see you next week. And if you're a natural health and wellness practitioner with a story to tell, I'd love to connect. You can find me at practitionersrise.com.